artificial scarcity, and that is why we are driven to work 80 hours a week when we are being our most productive at any point in American history. And so we should be working the least amount we've ever worked if we were actually paid based on how much wealth we were producing. But we're not. We're paid on how little we're desperate enough to accept, and then the rest is skimmed off and given to a billionaire.
So there's the Ocasio-Cortez in Austin over the weekend, blasting capitalism as an irredeemable system. Charles Payne, host of Making Money, that's music to his ears on the Fox Business Network. I kid. She went after Reagan, FDR. Get to that in a moment. First, what did you take from her appearance down there, Charles?
You know, it's just, she's rehashing sort of the kind of arguments that we've heard for a long time with these sort of, things in the past were awful. It really is, to a degree, the extension with President Obama, the social justice aspect. No matter if you believe 100% what she had to say about Reagan, 100% what she had to say about FDR. One is about 50 years ago, one's about 100 years ago. It's not a forward-looking vision. It's about complaining about things. It's about divisiveness. And it's just, beyond the factual inaccuracies of it, it's very dangerous if you're saying the alternative. It's a system that's failed every single time. Not just failed, but it's left a bloody, miserable trail in its wake. Again, with socialism.
But if you don't have a job in the U.S., you're left to die. I mean, you go through, as we were talking about earlier, some of the things that she said really leaves you scratching your head. It
does leave you scratching your head, and it just makes people feel, it just seems like Americans inherently aren't capable, right? It just says like, hey, if you just can't, I think this is where we have the big divide in this country. Do you believe that Americans can pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Do you believe that the average person out there can do what it takes to succeed? And is this the right backdrop to do it? What she's suggesting is that, in this great country with this great economy, the greatest on the entire planet, that, there are people out there that can't do it, and therefore government must swoop in and cradle them from birth to death. I can tell you, I know people 50 years old who have never worked. They're alive. They are alive. There's a million programs out there. They have never worked.
So she went after FDR and Reagan, tied this together as a form of racism. I think it was the argument about welfare to work,
right.
That whole government policy in this house. She said that.
I think a perfect example of how special interests and the powerful have pitted white working class Americans against brown and black working class Americans in order to just screw over all working class Americans is Reaganism in the 80s, when he started talking about welfare queens.
I don't know how you feel about the argument she's making there, but would the numbers not show you that there's a greater percentage of white people on welfare than on minorities?
Yeah. That's easy to look up. It takes about a 5-second Google search. And she's also conflating things. I think she's veering in the right direction with respect to the elites. I think people in America understand that. It feels like no matter who's in power, there's certain people who have benefited more, and there's certain people, black or white, who seem not to be able to make that move higher. But then when she brings Reaganism into it, under Ronald Reagan, our economy had a pretty good boom. In 1983, GDP was up 4.6%. 1984 was up 7.3%. 1985 up 4.2%. 86 up 3.5%. 87 up 3.5%. 1988 we were up 4.2%. These are numbers that we've given up on even achieving ever again. And by the way, when that tide lifts like that, it's people of all colors, races, creeds, and nationalities get the benefit from it.
All right, final thoughts on Larry Kudlow on trade over the week.